Hey, converted man here. Alright, so S.J. Thomason back at it again with depression and Christianity and atheism and all this, and link to the original video in the description, of course, once this is done being a live stream. So in her latest video, she's asking the question, can Christianity or atheism help with depression? The answer is honestly neither. If you're talking about clinical depression, the only thing that can help is therapy and or medication, and that's really it. If you're talking about just mood, like a mood, then yeah, maybe it could help. But there's an actual study. There's an actual study, a meta study, no less, done that only took a few moments to find, that talks about religion in general, and depression. And in some cases, it lowers the rate. In some cases, it raises the rate. And this might be to a number of different factors. Community is a big part. If you have a group of people that you meet with and you talk to and you get to hang out with, that can help you not to feel as alone, and that can help you with certain types of depression, but not every type of depression. In the study, and I'll link the study itself below as well, of course, that Pentecostals, for example, have higher depression rate, but that might be because people are going to the Pentecostal religion since the sermons are more uplifting, and so people that have higher depression are self-selecting to go to places that have sermons that are more uplifting so they don't feel as depressed. Now, whether we're talking about mood or clinical depression, it's hard to say with this particular study. And it's reviewing, of course, not just Christianity, but broad religion in general. And, it doesn't really talk about non-affiliated, non-religious people too much, but it is in there to some degree. But, again, so some get better, some get worse, some, don't, but this isn't like a clinical thing. This isn't a diagnosis. This isn't something that you're saying people that go are cured or anything like that. All it's really showing is that people are self-reporting feeling better, and that makes sense. Being in a community, feeling like you have a purpose, singing, all of doing rituals. These things can improve mood for some, but again, in others, it can lower mood. So in some religions actually make you more depressed. Certain denominations might make you feel worse. If it's all fire and brimstone, that's not going to make you feel very good. Although maybe going and getting a good cry out might make you feel better, but it might be temporary. Meanwhile, there's nothing about atheism one way or the other that I can tell, as far as any particular studies that have been done about depression rates and atheism. If there is a study out there, I don't know. I'm not aware of it, but of course, SJ's not going to bother to do any actual research on a study. I mean, why bother looking at studies when you can just mention Bible quotes and talk out of your ass? Now, she talks about there's a thing about that some people be at 3:46 or so in the video. There's this thing. Some people become atheists following a very traumatic event. Really? Okay. Some. That's an interesting non-statistic. How about a number? That could, not that it's really relevant, but why? Why does it matter why some people become religious after a traumatic event? What's your point? Based on emotional reasoning. Well, based on emotional reasoning, people become religious. So what's your point? But it's not this video isn't about those people. The time might help their wounds and restore their faith in God, or it might not. So, but then the problem is there's all sorts of problems with that. But you're injecting a God into the equation and assuming that it's real and assuming that it cares, but it's doing nothing to help that person in their time of hurt. Nothing. It's not doing anything. It's not talking to them. It's not comforting them. It's not hugging them. It's not telling them that it's going to be okay. It's not actively doing diddly squat. So if something traumatic happened, God watched that happen, permitted it to happen because of free will or whatever, and the person's going away from faith because of that. Okay, and what's God doing? Nothing. But this is about lifelong. Now that's in quote for some reason. I don't know. Lifelong atheists. And then she mentions this study: atheism has a 30% retention rate. There's a couple of different studies out there about so-called retention rates, but all of them are on Christian websites. So I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about those. But again, it doesn't really, there's been a rise of non-religious people that are claiming no religious affiliation. That doesn't necessarily mean atheist. But I don't know of any actual meta study or actual gathering of numbers of how long people stay as whatever given thing. And by the way, none of this, by the way, has anything to do with depression at all. So it just doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter if atheism had a 1% retention rate. That doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with anything else. So it's one giant red herring as far as I can tell. Can it help depression? No, because atheism isn't a thing that can help or hinder anything. It isn't a worldview. It's not a religion. It's not a thing like those things. So the answer to this rather loaded, weird question is no. But nor can it hurt it either, because it's not that sort of thing. Now, I know some people that have always been atheists their entire life. The idea of God, is something that they found out later about, or they heard about it and they're just like, well, that's weird. It just wasn't a part of their lives. And some of these people are happy, some are not, some are, they have a wide variety of emotions just like any other human. And just like any other human, they're going to either struggle with mental issues or not, or fluctuate or whatever. So to make this broad, sweeping generalization about this non-thing helping or not helping people with something that is psychological and or chemical in nature, which is what depression is. I mean, I'm talking clinical depression is usually chemical in nature. So either your brain is producing too much or not enough of the right chemicals. So you need stuff like bustrone or serotonin, or maybe you should take some folic acid or multivitamins. Yeah, I'm taking all that, by the way, because I deal with actual depression. So this really irritates me because I put SJ's foot to the fire a while back, and I guess I'll link my video where I did that as well in the description. Where she made this tweet about Christianity curing depression, and I really hammered her for it. Maybe I should have gone on and just not let up, but eventually I let it. I dropped it and moved on to other topics. But at any rate, you can't just make these kind of claims because people actually suffer from different things. And this isn't the only video, by the way, that does this. Okay, I was actually earlier today looking up, anger and depression, and there was a Teal Swan who's just this new age wacky woo cult of personality sort of thing, and then there was this other person talking about energy, and if you have negative energy and all this other bullshit that doesn't mean anything. So people like to pretend that they have the answers, that the medical industry has worked long and hard to get to the point where they actually have stuff that can actually work to some degree. And of course the woo people go, well, we're medicating too much. And there was a thing with that, with opioids. There was a whole thing and a reason behind that, and there needs to be better checks. But no system is perfect, sure, but those things aren't about psychiatric things and haven't been demonstrably demonstrated to improve or whatever. There wasn't too many studies done or whatever. So there if you're going in as a depressed person and you go in with zero knowledge about it, you have to trust your medical professional to have done that research. And just like any other medical procedure, there's years of research that leads to that diagnosis and treatment. Now, one can say psychology is a softer science, and yes, it is, and maybe it should be made into a harder science. I think it would be good if psychology combined, if psychologists and neuroscientists got together and started talking to each other more, and that psychologists started talking to each other and doing peer-reviewed papers or something. But nonetheless, okay, it's not a perfect thing. You're not guaranteed. Even the most studied and well-known thing is not a 100% guarantee. It's just that's not how life is. But I would still choose that because it's a lot higher percentage than just going to church and hoping that it will get better because you prayed your depression away. That sort of thing is just risking your entire mental well-being and everything, or physical well-being. There's a group of Christians that dance with snakes because there's a verse in the Bible that says you can handle snakes and you won't get bit or you won't get poisoned. And these people get bit all the time and they get poisoned. Sometimes they die. So the group just says, well, they didn't have enough faith. And they just ignore when people get bit. It's like, oh no, that didn't happen, or they didn't have enough faith in that moment, or whatever. And eventually, they build up some immunity to the poison. So eventually, yeah, they don't get poisoned anymore, but they still get bit because they're snakes. That's what they're gonna do. So it doesn't debunk their idea that even though it says this thing in the Bible about that you can mess with snakes and they won't bite you you won't get poisoned, and yet they get bitten and poisoned. The people that believe in the woo just make up other explanations for why that doesn't count. Well, those people just didn't have enough faith. So for the person that is a Christian or becomes a Christian or any other religion that doesn't get cured from depression, well, that person just didn't believe hard enough. That person wasn't a true Christian, or well, God is just testing them, or whatever other nonsense you want to throw at it. And there was this guy, I forget who his name was, but he was talking about how he had PTSD or whatever for however many 20 years or whatever, and then finally God cured it, and it's because he listened to the wrong person. It's like, it just was a bunch of nonsense that he was, and like how any of this connected with God was. I was like, why did God let you suffer so long before fixing you? Like, why 20 years? Like, why wouldn't God just fix you? Well, because I was listening to the wrong person and I believed the wrong thing. And I was like, well, but why would God care? Why wouldn't it fix you regardless? it seems to me maybe believing the wrong thing might have been what kept you in the idea, kept you locked into the place you were. But since you were religious then, you're still religious now. I don't see any correlation, causation that God did anything. Seems like you did all of it. But when people have beliefs, they will justify those beliefs with additional beliefs. So I don't care what the Bible has to say about anything, but she's got a bunch of Bible quotes. Where do we get hope? You get hope from yourself. That's one place you can get hope. You can get it from friends or family or whatever, yeah, I suppose that religion can say that there's hope. They can pretend to have hope. You might feel hopeful, but this kind of implies that it's kind of a loaded question, but it's an emotional thing, and you can get it from all sorts of places. But that doesn't mean that the place that you're getting it from is the system or idea or whatever you got it from is true because, well, it made me feel good, therefore it's true. No, that's not how things work. Why are we here? There isn't necessarily a why. How did we get? This is on 5 minutes 25 seconds of the video. This particular thing, I can't show it and do the live thing because I did it through YouTube and not the other thing that lets me do that. But whatever. Anyways, how did we get here? Evolution. Is there more to this life? Destiny? I mean, what does that even mean? You write your own destiny, if there's such a thing. I don't think there is, but there's whatever life is, whatever you make of it, or it makes of you, and how much control we have over that, who knows? Why do I have a conscience that fills me with the desire to do right and guilt when I've done wrong? Morality, evolution, and also social upbringing. But this of course doesn't. I can't believe that this still happens in so many of these videos, not just from Etsy, but from a lot of apologists, that whenever the moral stuff is brought up, ethics is never, I don't know, maybe ethics is brought up and I just haven't seen it. I've never seen ethics brought up. And the sociopath is never brought up. There are people born that don't have this conscience. They don't have these feelings at all. But that's a complete counterexample to what they're talking about. So of course they're not going to bring it up because it ruins their whole idea. Their whole thrust is like, well, everybody has this. No, not everybody does. So what about the people that don't have that? How do you explain that? How does God help you to explain the sociopath? And then talking about how, life, from her point of view, has more meaning if there's an extra life after you're dead or whatever. I mean, that's just her own personal bias, her own personal beliefs. I don't know that I think that, mortality sucks. I wish that we weren't mortal, but we are. And as far as I can tell, when you're gone, that's that. And you won't even know it. I'll be surprised if there's something else. That'd be great. But I don't have any reason to believe that. And accepting reality as far as I can determine it doesn't, I mean, even if it does make me feel bad sometimes or whatever, that doesn't make it false. So just because you might get a fuzzy feeling from believing in an afterlife doesn't make that afterlife true. But I'd say this. Life is, I think, more meaningful if this is it. And I gotta cite The Good Place, which is a show that has been on and finished its run. But they got it right. They have an eternity. They have a heaven area that everyone finally gets to and everything. And you get to do whatever you want in heaven. Everything that you could ever want to do. And it's amazing. But then you get bored because eventually you do everything. And so what gives that meaning is the ability then to exit that and end your existence. So they put in a way for people to do that whenever they want to. So having an end, even to an eternity, gives it a meaning. So having an end to this gives it meaning as well. A book doesn't lose its value when it ends. I'll put it another way. A legend's not a legend until it ends. Everything you do in this life is important. Okay, yeah, I agree. So this is on 7 minutes and 25 seconds. Everything you do in life is important, as your interactions with family, friends, and others may have a ripple effect on future generations. Well, it may or may not. I have no idea. But it does matter, regardless of if there is or isn't an afterlife, or isn't a God, or anything else. It absolutely matters what you do to somebody somewhere at some point, and maybe you will be the person that helps that other person in their time of need. As far as being in the image of God, you have to believe in God for that to be the case. I think we're not made in the image of anything other than apes, I suppose. I guess God's an ape, or well, whatever. I guess whatever the first thing was, maybe that's what, I don't know. But you don't have to be in the image of anything to have value. You don't have to believe in God to have value. All humans are of value and can make a difference that will define our destiny. Yeah, sure. Like I said, I think you can write your own destiny, and you can change what it is you want your purpose to be from moment to moment and day to day and second to second and so on. But that's regardless of whether you believe in Christianity or any other religion or not. It's still the things that are true about feeling like you have a value or whatever are going to be true regardless of the nature of reality, as far as I can tell. But as far as, what helps with depression, if you're talking clinical depression, medicine, and, therapy, and if you're talking just mood, it could be any number of things. Hell, even nice music can help, but it just depends on what it is, and maybe we should find some different words for non-clinical depression, because it does get kind of muddy with that natural language sometimes, where I say depression and I mean clinical depression, whereas someone else says depression and they just might mean feeling sad, which is totally different. It's like you get over feeling sad. You don't get over clinically depressed. You don't, because it's a chemical. It'd be nice if we could get the thing, to get out, find the place in the brain where that's happening and get rid of it or fix it or whatever. That'd be great. But we're not there yet. And if there is a God, it's certainly not poofing it into existence. So what do we need God for? Maybe in the end we need each other. And I think that's all we've got is each other. And it just irritates me so much when apologists and others, it can be anybody, proclaim that X will solve the problem, that medicine's already has worked on it and not solved it, but at least treated it. There isn't a solution for these issues. There are treatments. There are treatments for depression. There's not a cure yet. Maybe one day, maybe certain types of depression have cures, but it's too broad. It's just like, the problem with other diseases out there is that's not mental. There's too many varieties to just say, well, we've got a cure. It's like there's different ones. We might cure this particular one, but then there's all these other ones that we haven't dealt with. If you are depressed, and I mean clinically speaking, then seek therapy, get some medication going, because those things will help. Exercise can help. Eating and sleeping right will help as well. But I'm too lazy to do those things, so I'm just screwed, I guess. But whatever. Just because I don't do it doesn't mean it isn't a good idea to do. Whatever. So yeah, stop talking out your ass. Stop suggesting that. If you at least cited the study, at least you would have had something. But even the study is inconclusive as far as whether or not religion has positive or negative benefits. And the reason why is basically because of community, which you can have without religion. So that kind of blows the whole thing out of the water, doesn't it? Be skeptical, people. Learn logic for the love of humanity. And love each other, if you can. Or try to, at any rate. That's it. I'm done. I'm hitting the button now. So, bye.